Welcome back to the Pebble podcast. I'm your host, Matthew MacGregor, and I'm sitting here with Siobhan Percy from Computer Xplorers. Welcome, and thank you so much for joining us. We're kind of here to talk about franchising and the importance of brand consistency and kind of localized marketing to keep franchisees having that personal touch for their area, which is obviously very, very important. It's quite a big topic. I'm a marketer myself, so I know how important brand consistency as well across the board. But yeah, I mean, just to kind of kick things off, Siobhan, I'm really just going to tell everyone a little bit about your journey, and what got you into the kind of children's activity sector, and then a bit about Computer Xplorers.
No problem. Firstly, thank you for having me, Matthew. Great to be here with Pebble today. So I've worked in marketing and PR agencies for coming up to 20 years now. I started in the world of agencies, fast-paced marketing agencies, very much looking at tech brands, software security companies, platforms like Zendesk with their marketing and PR. And I moved from there into the world of automotive and motorsport, so something quite different, but again, really fast-paced, working with Dunlop on the British Touring Car Championships, working with celebrity management on Europe's biggest motorsport show. And from there, I kind of decided actually maybe agency life wasn't for me, and I was querying what in-house life might be like. So I took 6 months off, had a bit of a look around. What could I do? What were my interests? And from there, I ended up at a fashion brand, relatively small at the time, called Katie Loxton and Joma Jewelry, and I had a fantastic opportunity to work with the CEO and the creative director, the founder of the company. And I worked on managing the product launches right through to make sure that the photography was ready, the copy about the product, and at the time there was no marketing department. So I hired the first copywriter into the team. We grew the marketing department there. And the creative director went on maternity leave. And I had the opportunity to launch some of the products in the US for a few seasons. So it went backwards and forwards. So I got to see a full picture. And that was my first encounter with franchising. They have 2 franchises in the UK, and they had the stores, one up north and one down south. And as they grew, I worked on the shop fits. And fitting out the stores with stock, looking at the branding in the window, visual merchandising. So throughout that time, really, I touched on quite a few different marketing touch points, and working with different teams. And it was in 2021, I had my first child, and I was on maternity leave, and I had a call from Stuart Harley, who is the CEO of Computer Xplorers, and he said, how do you fancy coming to work for us? We could be a bit more flexible with the hours. This is a passion and something you're interested in. And so in 2021, I started with Computer Xplorers, and it has grown ever since. And it's a big project. And we started, it was around 22 franchisees in the UK at the time. We're now sitting at around 35 franchisees. And Computer Xplorers offers computing classes for kids. So we go into schools, and whether it's after school clubs, holiday camps, or in-school lessons, we teach kids robotics and computing and 3D printing, and all these fun things. And it's great fun. The kids don't see us as that typical teacher mentality. We're very much kind of a fun lesson planner, I guess. And there's sort of all sorts of opportunities there for franchisees, but I very much support them in their starting up of the franchise. So they're mentoring, learning how to teach the classes, but learning how to market those classes, right through to looking at their website and their reporting as well.
And how many franchisees does Computer Xplorers have at the moment?
So it's around 35 at the moment in the UK. Earlier this year, we also launched in Australia. So we're growing in that market as well. And other international markets are on the radar.
I mean, that's very, very exciting.
It's
and I mean, if you're looking at franchising, it's quite a powerful way to grow a business in the children's activity sector. And I'd kind of like to understand a little bit more about why it's such a strong model, and why it's so important, and why it can be so effective.
I think franchising, I mean, often it's described as a business in a box, right? You have to stump up the initial amount of money to invest in the franchise, but you're really given kind of the backbone of the business then. In the children's activity sector, you've got your curriculum, your lesson plans, your marketing support. And it's not just in terms of the tools that the franchise will offer you, it's that knowledge, it's that backup team. And I think if you're thinking you're in the corporate world at the minute and you want to start your own business, it can be really daunting to sit there and go, I'm going to leave my job and start my own business. There's lots of ambitious people that would like to do that, but maybe aren't willing to quite take that step. And so franchising gives you that opportunity to have that backup. We have a WhatsApp group, for example, with the other franchisees. Some might have only been on there a year, some might have been on 7, 8+ years. And so actually you can gain that experience, not just from the head office team, but it's like having colleagues in the office. We have a Friday quiz on our WhatsApp group. So you still have
That's
that
really fun.
you have
Yeah.
mentality. And I think that's really valuable. And it doesn't mean that you're so siloed in your business operations. It means that you can get it up and running in a faster and a shorter amount of time, which obviously gives you more income in the short term. So that's valuable as well. And you can draw on those lessons from those other franchises. You don't have to go in blind. And that's really valuable.
Yeah, I mean it is. I mean it's a very, very daunting experience starting a business, and having that kind of support system is definitely valuable and helpful along the journey. And that kind of brings me to my next question around your philosophy of thinking national but acting locally. And how brand consistency is very important across the Computer Explorers brand, but you need to have that personal touch from the local franchisees to ensure that they are hitting their kind of target segments in the areas in a very effective manner. And how does Computer Explorers balance that strong brand consistency with that local personalization for each franchisee? And what does this mean practically for the franchisees that you guys have on board?
So when it comes to marketing from a head office perspective, we really take to heart the think national, act local message. And what I mean by that is, as a head office, we think nationally. We think about campaigns, whether that's key dates in the calendar that we can tie campaigns into, whether that's the tools that we're using. So it might be a software platform, it might be something like Canva, or the messaging documents. We have those key assets that those franchisees can use. And it's really important from the get-go that a franchisee can come on board and they can understand the key selling points. And they have those messages that they can literally lift from a document and use in their local area. They have the logos, the colorways, all that kind of brand kit is set and ready to go. But also, I appreciate from a head office perspective, I'm not sat next to you in your local franchise in Sheffield. I cannot help you all the way. I'm at the end of the phone, absolutely, but I don't know the local nuances in your area. I can't talk about the local schools, the local community centres, and what would be relevant to you. And so we take the approach of giving these tools and these assets and allowing the franchisees to localize those elements. Now, I like to take the approach of trust first and not necessarily handhold. So we're not the type of brand where you have to run everything past me and say, is it okay before it gets sent out? Yes, I keep an eye on things and I will absolutely flag if something is not on brand. But the franchisees are trusted that they have the kit and the tools to hand and they can tweak those assets to work in that local environment.
So, and are there any specific kind of challenges that where there's Computer Explorers, the franchise as a whole, or the franchisees have faced in kind of merging this brand consistency with local personalization? And what are any kind of top tips you can give to franchises who are looking to expand and franchisees who are looking to start out and join a bigger franchise?
So I think that starting point is really interesting. I do a lot of training with franchisees. In fact, I do all their initial marketing training, and they come on board and everyone's from different backgrounds. Some might have some marketing experience, some not at all. And you really see the passion to start with. Everybody, yes, I want to get on board. And then once I've launched my classes, I want to market those classes. And I always say, actually, marketing is quite a challenge. It can take up a lot of your time. But you've got to remember when you're a franchise, you've got the operations, the accounts, as well as the marketing. There's a lot of activities. So I say to franchisees when they come on board, this is everything and I'm giving you all the tools, but really think about where your skill set lies in terms of marketing. I can help you pick the right channels, but if you need support, let's look at what support we can give you in certain areas. And allocate your time as well. Think about it. It's too easy to get in, set up, run a class. I forgot to take a photo in that class. Now you've got no photos to promote that class in future. So get in the habit of kind of planning your time, planning your days, looking at when can you allocate a few hours to plan social media for the next month. So you're not sat there frantically thinking, my summer camp started in 2 weeks' time. I have absolutely no content. It does happen. Unsurprisingly, we get those phone calls. But actually, there's no reason why you can't plan that content in advance. And we advise franchisees, you should be thinking about, have you got your venue? You should be marketing at this point. But it's really getting your head down. It's so easy to get caught up in the day-to-day running of your business. you either need to make time, or if you can't make time and you don't have the skill set, you need to look at an external resource to be able to support you with that. Your business will not grow without it. And then I think the challenge locally sometimes is often franchisees just don't know where to start. It can be quite overwhelming coming into the world of franchising. Okay, I've given you your materials. Where do we start? And I always think that the benefit of you being local and you being passionate about that topic and the brand is that comes across. You can sell the brand. And so it's about you getting in front of that audience in your local area, whether that is going into a school and doing an assembly and showing the kids that technology in our case, or whether it's going to the local community centre or the local library and offering to have pop-ups in the summer. There's all sorts of ways where you can get face-to-face with your audience, and that is the bit we can't support from a head office, but is so valuable and will really help build that engagement with that customer and that loyalty moving forward.
Yeah, it's almost in the sense that the franchisees know exactly, or they know more than the overall franchise, what that specific audience is looking for, because they live that day to day in that area. So as long as they have the kind of high level tools to be able to get in front of them, they know what they're doing.
Absolutely.
And therefore that the trust is there implicitly.
And the pain points in the children's activity sector are often the same, right? We have parents who are busy working. They need that wraparound childcare. So we know we need to offer not just after school clubs. We need to go beyond that and have childcare to 5 o'clock when people are working. Same with summer holiday camps. I was looking at just competitors in the industry recently, and we're looking at summer holiday camps that are kind of 9 to 2 or 10 to 2. Well, for working parents, that doesn't work. You need to have flexibility. If you want to grow your business, you need to be able to offer kind of 8 to 6 and those kind of hours. And that's not to say you need to do those things every day, but actually you need to kind of have some flexibility where you can bolt on extra hours for parents and support them. And that is something we're seeing at a kind of a national level, and it's applicable across the UK and beyond. And we're helping franchisees address kind of those needs.
Yeah, I mean, because wraparound care is it's a massive talking point. The industry is growing, and it's very necessary. I mean, there are a lot of working parents who just can't look after the kids every single day from 8 to 6. They need that kind of childcare to be given to them and accessible.
Absolutely.
And there was something you mentioned earlier about scheduling and tools. Before I get onto that next topic, is there a specific campaign from a franchisee in terms of the brand consistency versus kind of local personalization that you can pinpoint as a success story?
Okay, of course, yeah. So every year we run a campaign for British Science Week. It takes place in March. It's a great hook to talk about the STEM subjects. And this year we decided to offer free workshops across the UK. So we spoke to our franchisees ahead of time and said, what do you think? We run this, you could offer a free workshop if schools can enter a competition. Everybody was on board with the idea. So from a national level, we created the content for the website, we created the blog, the mechanism for entry, the national social media content, and emails out to schools. And we use a paid database to have all the contacts at schools, so we could email out to that database. So that was the kind of national element. But of course, we needed that to work on a local element. And so the franchisees were given social media posts that they could localize, local email content. And then beyond that, once the workshop had happened, we needed them to follow up with the schools to get the reviews, to make sure that they had the images to share on social media. So you're really going from your initial marketing campaign phase right through to actioning and having that workshop and the reviews the other side. And we held, I think it was around 4 workshops across the UK as part of that campaign. And 80% of those schools went on to book again, to inquire, not just for after school clubs, but for PPA cover, for WOW workshops. And so it was something that was great to have the franchisees on board with. We'd given them the assets. It was easy and convenient for them to be able to support the campaign, but it also helped in terms of broader brand awareness. We were using an industry hook, something that people would be searching for in Google to elevate the brand to the next level.
And what do you think made this campaign resonates so well with the schools and the parents for those kind of local areas and the fact that your franchisees operate in?
I think our messaging is very much focused about children being hands-on with technology. And unfortunately, in the UK, that's not always possible. There's a lot of schools that don't and can't afford, rightly so, to have all that kit to hand. And actually, we can go into schools and we can have the technology and the kit and we can show them. And it's amazing to see these kids,
Yeah.
their eyes just, really focus on this tech and they absolutely love it and they see it as fun and engaging. So we really focused on that element. It's maybe something that they don't always, unfortunately, see in schools. And so we use that as our kind of hook to tease them in and kind of show them what we could do. And of course, you're not just then teaching that workshop to the children, but the other teachers from the school might be in that class, in that hall. You might have the head teacher there. So we could show off our skills and our offerings to those.
It's always great.
And it's always great to be in front of that audience. Children's activities providers don't always get that opportunity to get in front of that audience. These days, schools can be quite tight, and getting through the door to get into a school can be very difficult. So actually looking at how can you use these hooks to get in front of that school, to get in, to open up those doors for future opportunities.
Amazing. And then now I want to move on to the kind of the technology side of things. So you were talking about the kind of franchisees being able to leverage the tone of voice and the branding and certain tools that you guys use like Canva. And I kind of want to just talk about the importance of franchisees kind of utilizing tools, whether it be your CRM or your scheduling system or your booking management system, and how important it is to choose the right tool, and how does Computer Xplorers support their franchisees in using these tools and during setup as well as during their ongoing success.
Okay, so there's quite a lengthy process that goes into choosing the right providers when it comes to technology. We really have to evaluate how is the software going to work, because our franchisees are from different backgrounds. They do have different areas of expertise. Some might be more capable with technology than others. So we really have to test it. We typically then take on maybe 5 franchises in the UK and test it with those franchisees to gain and gather that feedback. So we can work with the provider then to say, well, does this work? Can we tweak this? Can we change this? And look at the long-term plan to launch a piece of software. So whether that's Pebble, whether that's Canva, we look at making sure that the technology is ready and prepared from the start. And we input as much as we can for the franchisee. So, for example, with Pebble, we make sure that our franchises have images and base descriptions of copy provided to them. On Canva, they've got their logos, the colorways, some photos on there as well. So you can start to see with all this software and all the rollouts that we do, we build the foundations. We then offer kind of mentoring on the software, and we use other technology to help with that mentoring. So things like Loom, where we can record the presentations and the training, so franchisees can go back in their own time and they can log on, often in the evenings once they finish teaching their classes, sat down with a glass of wine, learning how to use the latest piece of marketing technology. But it does require the element of being flexible with franchisees, because some will need more training than others on these technology platforms. But there's some great tools out there, and there's some tools that we instigate from a head office perspective. But there's also tools that the franchisees are using, and the kind of world of technology is changing very fast at the moment. We're seeing more of the ChatGPT, we're seeing more AI agents. In the last week, I've been using something called Manus, which I would rave about. It's a really interesting use of AI, and instead of being natural language processing to put information in, you can actually use a remote desktop, so things to build base presentations and base content on as well.
That's very interesting.
It's very whizzy, and I'm sure I've only discovered the surface of what is capable in this Manus software. It's really interesting. And I'm sure there's going to be more out there, and it is a case of trying these things and seeing what works. How can we use that for franchisees? Does it work for everybody? It's technology is a big focus for the business.
I mean, getting AI agents to help the franchisees do all their onboarding. It just streamlines all the operations, really.
There's so much potential, and we're still quite digital in that I do my franchise onboarding either in person or online, and I'm sat in front of a screen and we interact and we have conversations, and I do think that's really valuable. You need to have that personal insight, the opportunity to ask questions. But it's also very intense. Franchisees come on board and we give them 2 weeks worth of training. And they're going through the curriculum and the marketing all in that short space of time. And you can kind of see their faces throughout the day going, I understand this, but wow, I need to come back to this at a later date. There is so much to take on. And having those other tools where they can go back and they can look at the screen record or actually just look at the notes and the key actions on how to do things, and that they sit there for whenever they choose to access is a useful tool.
No, and I mean, yeah, like tools like Loom, it's a great way
Mm-hmm.
for them to just access it whenever they want, on demand all the time. And so, I mean, talking about tech, moving back into the kind of human element of franchising, and I want to talk about kind of community and building trust. And it's when Computer Xplorers brings on a new franchisee, a really big part of the children's activity sector is the trust you build with the guardians and the parents. I mean, you are looking after their kids for those hours, right? So for them, it is the most important thing. And are there any kind of tips or any ways that Computer Xplorers helps their franchisees in building that trust and growing that community? And what advice would you give them when starting up a franchise and how to do that and how to maintain that by getting the parent testimonials, getting the reviews?
Exactly. So your customers are your biggest advocates. And like you say, in the children's activities sector, trust is vital. It's top of the list. And so you've just got to bear that in mind when you look at these marketing campaigns from start to finish. Building that initial relationship with the parents, making sure that they've got clear communication in advance of going into that session. Make sure they've ticked all the right forms for can we consent to photography, making sure that you have all that information to hand going into the classes, and then following that the other side. Getting those reviews, and there's various ways that you can do that. And I think actually having something in person is really useful. We say to our franchisees, print a little business card with a QR code to the reviews platform. Share that after the class, because it's really important that feedback is in the moment. Parents, again, are busy people. They're not going to, 5 days later, they're not just going to conveniently remember to leave you a positive review. They need that reminder. And it might not just be one channel that you have to use. You might have to give them that printed QR code to leave feedback. You might then need to follow up with some email marketing a few days later. And then not forgetting that, once they've left that review, actually, it's nice to acknowledge that personally. I know it can take time to do that, but acknowledge that. And also, if there are slightly negative reviews or constructive criticism, to respond to that and actually use that. That information actually can be just as useful as the positive reviews sometimes to make action within your business. So consider that negative feedback and how you can respond and review that as well.
I mean, the way to correct is by knowing you need to correct first. And so you can't, if those constructive criticism reviews are definitely necessary as well to help a franchisee and us be successful in what we're doing.
Absolutely.
And that goes for anybody really. And then when it comes to setting up a franchise, do you have any tips or advice on what aspiring franchisees and how they should go about setting up a franchise and what they need to be aware of, as well as any myths of being a franchisee?
Myths of franchising. I think when I first came into the world of franchising, a few people had said to me, what do you do? I work in the world of franchising. Oh, is it a pyramid scheme? Or is it I'm not actually going to make any money back, am I? And I'm like, well, that's not quite how it works. So I think there's still a long way to go in terms of people actually understanding what a franchise is and how that works. And we work closely with the British Franchise Association to educate audiences and to understand what the opportunities are in the world of franchising. But I think it depends where you are in that journey. Do you even know that franchising is a thing? Okay, if you don't look into things like the British Franchising Association to understand who is a member, how do they work, what support can you get from the associations that are out there. And then as you're going down that route and you start speaking to potential companies, ask them what software and tools are they using and how are they going to support you? What's the initial investment? How much is the royalty on an ongoing basis? And try and get to speak to their existing franchisees. You'll notice that some brands will say, here, speak to this person or speak to this person. Rather than do that, say, can I approach Bolton? Can I approach Sheffield? And pick them slightly more at random. And it will give you a better idea, speaking to the franchisees, maybe some that have been around 5 years versus some that have been around for only 1 year, on their experience with that brand and how that changes. It's important to look at all those kind of touch points that you'll have with the brand. And it's got to be something that you're interested in. Ultimately, the franchises in the Computer Explorers kind of network do well when they're passionate about the product. It shows to the end customers, like anything. So be passionate about it, dig deep, find out your areas of expertise and where your weaknesses lie. Ask the franchise, how could you support me with, accounts is not my strong point by any means. So, how are they going to help me with accounts? Who can help with that element? And I think once you start to build that picture, you can almost do that kind of analysis of the opportunities that are out there. And ultimately your kind of gut, I think, on a lot of this will tell you which way that you need to have.
I mean, that your gut is the best feeling you'll have. It's utilize it.
Yeah. I think when you see that there are similarities absolutely across children's activities providers, but there'll be ones that you speak to, and you're gonna be working closely with the staff at head office. You need to be able to work with them. You need to understand how they work. So that relationship's really important. So have those conversations early on.
And I mean, do you have regular check-ins with all of your franchisees, basically, like weekly basis?
Yeah, absolutely.
Bi-monthly or...
So we have a call every other month with our franchisees that rotates between a call in the day and a call in the evening. And we all get together and we'll go through top-level business priorities, but we'll share those experiences as well. And that's very much on a call. But we also have a WhatsApp community group where every day someone will message and say, what do you think of this? This has worked really well. Celebrate the success stories along the way. And then we have our annual conference as well, typically in November. And we get to see everyone face to face. And that is so valuable. I think actually meeting franchisees, especially those that have come on board in the last year, that are all new, meeting face to face is great.
No, I mean, we were just recently at the Festivities Elevate event, and it was just seeing everyone in person, being able to chat to them, and it just, that relationship building aspect is second to none, really.
It is. And it sparks those new ideas. We always come out of conference and everybody's got so much energy and lots of new ideas. And it's capitalizing on those.
No,
on the moment.
And then talking about kind of success in franchisees, can you share your favorite success story of a franchisee? Or, I mean, if you have more than one.
So I've got, there's a franchise in Sheffield, Martin and Lisa, absolutely fantastic couple. Martin is an ex-teacher. Lisa supports on the operational side of the business. And they have a weekend academy, runs on a Saturday. Kids come along, sometimes the parents stay, sometimes they don't. Martin teaches the classes and Lisa's there as a support with the tech and she can speak to the parents. And she's chatting to one of the mums one morning and said, oh, I'm going to be starting an after school club in your area. I've spoken to school, but sorry, I've not put it up. I've not promoted it yet, but it is coming your way. And that evening, she sat and looked at her messages and the booking platform was ticking away. And she was receiving all these bookings, but she hadn't actually marketed at all. Not a single message had been sent out on social media. And it turns out the parent had booked the class and then put it on the class WhatsApp group. And so all the other parents had instantly gone and quick get a place before this runs out.
Oh,
and
wow.
So by the next day, 75% of the classes were full. And so it just shows you that sometimes you don't actually need to market those classes. Actually, having that loyal customer, that word of mouth, your customers can be your advocates for you. And I think that really is fantastic. But sometimes it's that easy. Sometimes it's absolutely harder than that. But I think it's all about having fun along the way.
Agreed.
We have a new franchisee in Warwickshire. And he phoned me up the other day and said, oh, I'm going to a summer fair, going to promote the brand. Great, really practical, hands-on, fantastic. And I've bought a Minecraft character costume, so I'm going to dress up and hand out my leaflets dressed in the Minecraft character costume. And I just thought, brilliant. This is the kind of stuff we need to be doing. It engages the children. It attracts attention.
And that will be remembered.
And it will be remembered.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so we've got some lovely photos of that on social media now.
And then on the flip side, do you have any sort of frustrations or hurdles when it comes to kind of local events that have happened, or any kind of franchising events that Computer Xplorers has done where you've got some really important, let's give it 3 key learnings that franchisees and franchisors can take away from?
I think when it comes to key learnings for events, planning in advance, giving yourself enough time to plan and market an event, dedicate that time to planning. It's so easy, like I say, to get caught up in being in these classes and teaching when that's what you're passionate about. So firstly, make sure you plan Secondly, make sure you utilize the tools from head office. Sometimes franchisees sit there and they kind of brainstorm from the first step, but actually you can start with step 4 or 5 because the franchise has already provided you with those other assets. So take a step back, look at what's being provided for you. And then the third tip that I'd recommend is just really looking at the process from start to finish and not forgetting that just because a class has happened, that's the end. It's not. Have you got your next class up and running so that as soon as that class is finished, they can go straight on the booking platform and book the following class and leave a review and refer it, recommend a friend and bring someone along. Like, what are those messages that you'll be sending to the customer down the line? The biggest challenge is definitely a time to be able to do that. But actually, if you plan it in advance, having that whole journey is actually relatively straightforward.
Yeah, I mean, definitely that post-purchase nurturing is super important. I mean, that goes with everything as well, but it is very, very important. And then finally, can you give me 2 things, your own opinion on, one, the future of franchising? What do you see the biggest things that will happen in the next 12 months? And the children's activity sector?
Okay. So when it comes to the world of franchising, kind of in the next 3 to 5 years, you are absolutely going to see technology ramp up. It's already happened in the last year. That's only going to continue. So whether that's the use from a head office perspective or what the franchisees are doing, and it will vary across the franchise sectors, but children's activities are going to need to embrace that. Part of that is going to be a challenge with using tech with children and educating parents. I think there's traditionally maybe been a view that to be slightly wary of tech, and parents need to educate themselves. So in the next 3 to 5 years, we're going to see parents looking at technology and kind of saying, okay, I need to understand this as well. So I don't maybe take the device away from the child completely, but I look at the parameters that I can put in place. So both from a franchisor perspective and a franchisee perspective, it's technology.
Yeah, it always is. It's also moving so fast.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Yeah, you can't avoid it. And I think there's people that, are still quite anti-technology, and you have to think about how you can use it in small doses.
Yeah.
And how you can just slowly start to bring that into your business.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much. That was a really, really awesome discussion. I learned a lot about the franchising world. And we really, really appreciate your time.
Thank you for having me.